You might be telling yourself a quiet story, that you've become lazy, that something in you stopped working. You notice how long it takes to begin simple things, how effort feels heavier than it used to, how motivation doesn't respond no matter how much you push. And maybe the most confusing part is this. You still care. You still think about what you should do. You just can't seem to move the way you once did. So the label appears: lazy, unmotivated, undisciplined. But what if that label is covering something else? Something quieter, something far more common than you've been told. Stay here for a moment. There's more to this than it looks. If this is where you are, there's nothing defective about you, nothing broken, nothing you failed to maintain. Emotional burnout doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't arrive with alarms or obvious collapse. Often, it shows up as slowness, hesitation, a strange heaviness that settles into everyday moments. You may still be functioning, showing up when you have to, responding when expected, and because you're still doing something, it's easy to believe you shouldn't feel this tired. But exhaustion isn't always physical. It can live in the constant effort of holding yourself together, of thinking ahead, of adapting quietly. So if you've been wondering why things feel harder without a clear reason, this isn't a personal flaw. It's a human response. You don't have to fix anything yet. Just stay with me a little longer. Laziness is usually described as not caring, as a lack of interest, a refusal to try. But what you're experiencing doesn't look like that. You think about the things you're not doing. They sit in your mind. Sometimes they even create guilt. If you truly didn't care, there wouldn't be that quiet pressure following you around. What often gets mislabeled as laziness is actually overload. Too many emotional demands stacked without enough recovery. Too much internal monitoring. Too many moments where you had to push past what you felt. When that happens, the system slows things down on purpose, not to punish you, but to protect you from further strain. So the hesitation you feel before starting something, that pause isn't defiance, it's your capacity checking itself. If you stay here, you might begin to notice something important. This isn't about willpower, it's about how much you've already been carrying. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from being capable for too long. From finding ways to manage, adjust, and keep going without ever fully stopping. You may have learned how to perform well enough, how to meet expectations, how to appear steady, even when things felt off inside. Over time, that constant coping becomes work of its own, not visible work, not the kind anyone praises, but effort that never fully turns off. High-functioning burnout doesn't look dramatic. It looks like doing the minimum required and feeling strangely depleted by it. It looks like losing the extra energy you used to give without thinking. And because there was no single breaking point, no clear moment where everything fell apart, it's easy to dismiss what you're feeling now. But emotional systems don't collapse all at once. They thin out. They stretch, they quietly run on reserve. If this feels familiar, stay with this recognition. There's more understanding ahead. You might try to rest and wonder why it doesn't help, why time off doesn't restore you the way it used to, why even doing nothing can feel strangely tense. That confusion often adds another layer of self-criticism. I'm resting, I should feel better by now. But emotional burnout keeps the system alert, not in an obvious way, more like a low, constant hum in the background. Even when you stop moving, your mind may stay slightly braced, scanning, anticipating, preparing for the next demand. So rest turns shallow, interrupted, never quite landing. This isn't because you're bad at resting. It's because true rest requires safety. And when you've been emotionally stretched for a long time, that sense of safety takes longer to return. The pressure to use rest correctly can actually keep exhaustion in place. It turns pauses into performance. If rest has been disappointing lately, that's not another failure to add to the list. It's a sign your system hasn't fully powered down yet. Stay here. We're still unfolding what this means. At some point, burnout can shift into something even quieter. Not distress, not sadness, just a dull absence where motivation used to be. You might notice fewer strong reactions, less urgency, less desire to start or finish things. Not because you don't care, but because caring began to cost too much. Numbness is often the system conserving energy, a way of turning the volume down when everything has been too loud for too long. It's protective, even if it feels unsettling. This phase can be especially confusing. There's no dramatic pain to point to, just a sense of being disconnected from your own momentum. And because nothing looks obviously wrong, the self-judgment can creep back in. Why am I like this? But emotional flatness isn't emptiness, it's containment, a pause. If you recognize yourself here, you're not stuck. You're in a holding pattern your system chose for a reason. Stay with me. There's something important still ahead. When burnout shows up, the instinct is often to push harder, to create rules, to add structure, to demand momentum back into place. But burnout doesn't respond to pressure, it contracts under it. What it's asking for is quieter than that. Less urgency, less self-surveillance, fewer internal deadlines. This can be uncomfortable to hear, especially if you've relied on discipline to get through difficult seasons before. What once helped you survive may no longer be what helps you recover. Burnout is a signal that the pace exceeded what was sustainable for too long. Not because you mismanaged yourself, but because you kept adapting without relief. So the need now isn't to become stricter, it's to become more responsive, to notice where effort spikes, to allow pauses without immediately turning them into problems. This doesn't mean giving up. It means listening to a system that's been speaking quietly for a while. There's a shift coming soon in how you might see yourself. Stay here for it. At some point, it may help to loosen your grip on the word you've been using against yourself. Lazy. That word carries judgment, finality, a sense that this is who you are rather than what you're experiencing. But when you look at the full picture, the long stretch of effort, the quiet adapting, the emotional load that never fully lifted, that label no longer fits. What looks like inactivity is often recovery trying to begin. What looks like avoidance is a system asking for gentler conditions. You didn't lose your work ethic. You didn't suddenly stop caring. You reached a limit without realizing how close it was. Letting go of the label doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It means choosing a more accurate explanation, one that leaves room for movement later. You don't have to replace it with optimism yet, just with neutrality, with the possibility that you were responding normally to prolonged strain. We're almost at the end now. There's just one more thing you deserve to hear. If you take nothing else from this, let it be this. You're allowed to move slowly right now. There's no deadline on recovery. No requirement to prove that you're improving. No need to earn rest by being productive first. What you're feeling isn't a failure of character. It's a nervous system asking for a different pace, for fewer demands, for moments that don't need to lead anywhere. You don't have to decide what comes next tonight. You don't have to solve yourself. You don't even have to feel hopeful yet. It's enough to recognize that the harsh story you've been telling yourself was never the truth. If staying here brought even a small sense of relief, you can return to this understanding whenever the label tries to come back. You're not lazy. You've been emotionally burnt out, and that means there's nothing wrong with you.